Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to Spirit of Islam. I am your host Ashraf Zaghloul, and today we're going to talk about a topic we've talked about before, which is the role of young Muslims in the society and in Islam. I'd like to introduce my guest today, Brother Assam. Assalamu alaikum. And Brother Nabil. Assalamu alaikum. Azam, you chose this topic. Why did you choose the topic?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. First of all, this topic is very important in the Canadian society these days, since the youth part of Muslims has increased in Canada, especially in North America. And I think the role of youth, of the young Muslims in the Islamic world or the Islamic society should be spread out, and people should be aware.
But let's talk. What is the role of a young Muslim in the society? What do you think the role of a young Muslim is?
Well, youth in Islam is like the people. The young Muslims are the ones who built Islam, and back like the Sahaba, for example. There are many youth Sahabas who supported Islam and who actually built Islam. For example, Mus'ab bin Umayr radiallahu anhu was the first ambassador in Islam. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu he sent him to Medina, and he was only 16. He chose them. He chose him amongst all the other Sahaba who were like older in age. He chose him to go to Medina, spread Islam, and talk to the people of Medina about Islam, teach them, and to actually send the message.
Fair enough. What about you, Brother Nabil? What's your feeling?
Well, I completely agree with what Azam said, but essentially in this society, the role of the youth, we show zealousness. We have this desire to look and search for the truth. We feel like we have the confidence that's needed to actually go and pursue the truth. And this is the age where you actually develop your self-confidence, your self-consciousness. And as such, it's very important that you have Islam as a part of your self-consciousness and as a part of who you actually are.
But how do we make Islam part of this self-consciousness?
Well, one of the ways we can actually do so is because, first of all, when you're growing up as you think, your parents have to develop good Islamic values in you. But another thing we can do is actually facilitate the youth growing up, because in our society, growing up in high school, you have different cliques, and the very need for the youth is actually to belong in somewhere.
Yes.
So as Muslims, if we are interested in social work, we should actually facilitate where these youth can actually input their expressions and thoughts into a place where it's more Islamic. Whereas, say for example, in high school, there's different cliques, and I'm trying to find where exactly I fit, because the worst thing for a youth to do is to be left out. And then he has nowhere to go.
Well, we don't want anybody to be left out. So what ideas do you have, Azam, for this?
Well, there are like in high school especially, there are MSAs, there are some schools have Muslim students around, like have a good Muslim community around it. So I suggest to high school students especially, or any university students, to actually have some friends or some connections between the Muslims and themselves, like in their life.
But, see, the challenge is we don't want to separate the Muslims from the non-Muslims, because a part of our work is da'wah, to let people know about Islam. We're not to really close on ourselves and become just a group ourselves, is to live with others, share with others, and they see the Islamic values, which is the Islamic values is not a lot different than the Canadian values we have. We have a lot of great values in this society. So how could we, as you guys, as young Muslims, show that Islam is a wonderful religion? Some of this bad propaganda we see on TV had nothing to do with Islam. So how do we give that message out to non-Muslims?
Well, one thing I would suggest, and actually we implement this, I go to York University, and other universities, I believe around the world, we do Islam Awareness Week. And that's very beneficial, because what happens is we distribute Qur'ans, we have da'is there that actually go and give the knowledge to the people, and you will have people that are Muslims asking questions to clarify what the Muslim actual standpoint is, what the orthodoxy is, and stuff like that. And in terms, you also get non-Muslims coming in and asking you questions. And the best thing to realize is that, you know what, we're we're not so different than you and I. We have different cultural values, but in terms of Islamic principles, it's the same as any humanitarian principles,
Yeah.
and that's what they really appreciate.
Good. What about from your side, Azam? What else could we do?
I think like spreading the word out about Islam is a good a way of making people around non-Muslims especially aware of Islamic traditions and principles.
But let me tell you this, you know, it should be, I always feel nobody likes to be lectured at. You don't go and say this is Islam. I feel we have to live Islam. If each one of us lives Islam, people outside would look and say, subhanallah, this is wonderful. So, you know, how do we stress to young people, live Islam, live by Islam, and this way you don't have to do this da'wah work. And the best thing I say is from Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was wrongly imprisoned, but he behaved as a Muslim. And people, when the criminals in the cells looked at him and said, you're different, you're a good guy, tell us more. So they asked, rather than him trying to preach to them and tell them you're bad people and let me tell you the right path, he lived it. And how do we tell young Muslims, go and live Islam, be part of this community, and then if people want to know more, by all means.
The first step that young Muslims should take is to make an effort to study the Islamic principles. And once they study it, they apply it to their own life.
This is a real thing. Is it really study? And that's where I say you live it. How do we instill it? You don't have to study. It doesn't have to be going to classes. You know what I mean? Islam is a wonderful religion. You know, how do we let people, it's a natural thing. It's nothing you keep doing. I don't know.
Well, I'll give you an example. Growing up in high school in Canada, in Toronto, we used to have Friday programs where we used to play basketball every Friday.
Yeah.
Now that has very little to do with in terms of Islamic knowledge, but what it's doing is it's a bunch of people, and non-Muslims were also welcome to come, and they would come and we would actually practice basketball.
Yeah.
This is a sport that is played in North America. It's very general, and what it's doing is we would have khataras there for 15 minutes, which would instill us Islamic values, but at the same time we're still living Islam. We're playing in a traditional way. We're not swearing. We're not using bad
Islam
language.
encourages sports and encourages being active and being healthy. So this is part of Islam. And that's the part what I want to show is we are no different.
Absolutely.
We live, yes, we don't do bad things. There's certain things we don't do. But, you know, we are in the mainstream.
Yes.
And one of the important things, you know, about Islam is to be cheerful, to be friendly. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says when you smile to somebody, you get a blessing. So us as Muslims, we have to smile and we have to be cheerful. And how do we teach this to young people to do this?
Well, the way to teach young people to be cheerful and to be happy is not to look at yourself as an outsider in this society. It's to accept your Canadian heritage in whatever form, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're born here, and to accept yourself as being Canadian and a Canadian Muslim.
Yes.
And once you learn to do that, you're going to embrace your other kind, whether they be from another ethnicity, other diversity, or another religion. Because when you smile at that person, he's like, why is he smiling at me? Like, it draws his attention to you. And then he starts observing your other practices. And if they're in adherence to Islam, eventually you're doing da'wah indirectly to that person.
Yes.
Which makes when you do da'wah directly to that person, it's so much easier because he has an understanding. And I think that's a good way to go about being happy.
What other thoughts you have,
Yeah,
Azam?
there is like, for example, people, the parents should also be part on this by actually getting their children used to the Islamic values and principles. Like they should actually lead their children and lead them and make them, like as you said, live Islam. So once they live it in their childhood, they will develop this skill and this principle once they grow up as young Muslim, young adults, and as they grow up to being an individual adult.
And one of the things is a hadith for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that said, the best Muslim is the one who balances between this life and hereafter. So we can't dedicate all ourselves for just for this life or all our life for the hereafter. We balance. And this is an important skill, that how do we encourage young Muslims to do that balance, to contribute to this life, contribute to this society. If you're an engineer, become the best engineer. If you're a doctor, become the best doctor, and add value and balance this.
Well, I think in terms of having the good balance, I think it's going to be different even in Toronto because of the diversity of our different demographics. I think the balance is going to be different for somebody living in Mississauga who's aspiring to be a lawyer as opposed to the balance that he has to find with somebody who's trying to be an engineer or somebody trying to get into sports. I think the balance in that is you know what is too far. When you're neglecting your salah, when you're neglecting other parts of your Islamic aspect for worldly desires, that's when you know you've gone a little too far. But when you can accommodate your worldly desires, your desire to study, your desire to play sports in accordance with Islam, I think that's when you strike a fine balance. And in fact, what happens is they both complement each other. The fact that you can pray, the fact that you're doing sports, it'll help you progress into the goal that you actually want to find.
Yeah.
I just want to mention a hadith. Prophet Muhammad says, Muhammad, he says, المؤمن القوي خير وأحب إلى الله من المؤمن الضعيف. It means that the strong mu'min is better to Allah than the weak mu'min.